The month of February begins. Welcome to your post-daily news show. I am John Pollock, joined by Wai Ting. A happy Chinese New Year to you, Wai. The year of the tiger.
That is correct, John.
It begins now.
It, surely it does. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, I'm just wishing you well. That's all.
No, I appreciate it. I'm saying thank you.
Okay. Well, we have lots to discuss today, as we do all the time. Wai, what are you most excited to talk about today?
There are a lot of stories, of course, and I think we should dive right in because I think there's a lot of it. So whatever you have listed here is what I'm most excited about.
Well, I think Wai is most excited that if you missed Raw, we now have the lineup for the Elimination Chamber that is going to be coming up on Saturday, February the 19th. A Saturday midday show will be happening, and we have Bobby Lashley defending the WWE Championship against Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins, Riddle, AJ Styles, and Austin Theory, also announcing Becky Lynch and Lita for the Raw Women's Championship for the Elimination Chamber. And I guess we will see what fleshes out the rest of this card and where things go. Obviously, given the participants in the Elimination Chamber match, Wai, I would say that there are several different directions people can assume that they go or be intrigued by, Lashley and Lesnar being the key participants in this match.
Definitely, yeah. I think you really have, a real contender. I would say of the six, I could see three of them being real viable challengers. I think a lot of us, they did at least a decent job of explaining why Brock Lesnar would be in the match and why he would want to, go ahead and have two belts. But I don't see him doing it for this year's WrestleMania. So for me, my favorite will probably continue to be Lashley. But I also think there's a real chance Seth Rollins can potentially win the title and, go on to defend it against whoever.
Yeah, it does bring up the question that if Lesnar is not to win this, like what benefit is there to Lesnar being in this match where you have to come up with an ultra creative way to get him out of this, especially when you're coming off of that loss to Lashley at the Rumble? That I think that would increase your probability factor of Lesnar winning this, because it's not like you couldn't find another place for Lesnar on this show somewhere. He was going to be on the Saudi Arabia card regardless, but putting him in this match, I mean, this is the type of match where you are kind of in a corner to, if he's not winning, you only have so many ways to beat a guy and quote unquote protect him.
Right. Yeah. Maybe there's some urge to have Lesnar in the top build match, in the title match, to justify it. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe
he could have done a concert. Maybe he could have done a live concert in the ring.
Okay. At this point, what would he do? Would he sing? Would he play an instrument?
Guitar.
Dance?
Yes.
Oh, guitars. Okay.
Rock and roll.
Love it. Rock and roll.
This new character. That's where things could have been going. So there you go. If you missed Raw, that's essentially the news that was coming out of it, and a Ronda Rousey segment that was very, very underwhelming for week one of her return on Raw. But she'll be back on SmackDown on Friday. Lio Rush provided an update on Monday after his injury on Sunday's Bola card with PWG. For those that did not hear, it apparently occurred during a curb stomp spot where Buddy Matthews delivered the curb stomp to Lio Rush, and there had been issues about like some drinks that had been thrown into the ring that might have thrown things off, but it resulted in a very rare disqualification finish for PWG, where Lio won by DQ, but was taken to the hospital. So Buddy Matthews continued in the tournament, and the update that Lio posted on Monday afternoon stating that he had a clean dislocation of his left shoulder, as opposed to the right shoulder, which is the one he had to have that he had injured previously in the back. He said there will be an MRI in 2 to 3 weeks to hopefully find that there's no severe ligament damage or a tear. And he went on to say, to all the boys in the back and crew at PWG last night that were super attentive and extremely helpful, thank you so much. More frustration and disappointment than anything else at the way last night ended. To all of my fans and supporters, thank you for the outpouring love and support. Saddened by the hate speech, racial slurs, and throwing of objects in the ring by the quote-unquote fans who attended night 2 of Bola. But nothing will, he meant to say, diminish my love for the sport and stop me from performing for those who appreciate my craft. I will be back See you soon. So, it had been noted about, things being thrown into the ring and those people being admonished, but bringing up a completely different level of the potential of hate speech or racist language being used that, in no way can you possibly condone.
Yeah, and I've never been to a PWG show, but it honestly surprised me to hear that, because I would expect the people that would go to PWG to be, the ones who are most into professional wrestling, or the ones of your general wrestling going audiences, to be the ones who might be the most sympathetic, empathetic, for the actual performers that are there. I might be able to, I wouldn't be that surprised. Okay, if like I heard instances of this happening at, I don't know, some mainstream thing where somebody casually on a Saturday afternoon decided to go to a wrestling show. It's not important to them. They're terrible people. But the people that actually love professional wrestling, that I would expect would be the ones who, are getting tickets to a PWG event for Bola. I'm shocked that, like, in Los Angeles you got this sort of thing, and it's horrifying that it's in 2022 something like this is happening in what I consider to be, what feels like a pretty sacred space for, I think, this, like, to be, you really have to be a bit privileged, I would say, to even be able to get a ticket to one of these things, and to have some of those tickets go to, like, just assholes who should not be attending wrestling events is really sad. So I don't know if there's a way to police shit like this in the future, but I there's absolutely no place for it. And if there's instances of people seeing this within the crowd, like, get those people out of there.
Yeah, and I think that would be a sentiment like that this audience would have, of wanting to stomp that kind of thing out. I heard from some people that were there. This was before Lio had posted this, and I had heard, like, there had been pro and negative love hate kind of chants for Lio, but nothing like this. It was just that Lio Rush got like a polarizing reaction from the crowd. Some pro, some booing him. But this is like a totally different level. That there's no place for this. Obviously, I think that goes without saying, but. Hopefully the shoulder injury is not too severe, because his free agency kicks off on the 14th, and I guess this would probably put the Terminus event at least in question, if he would be ready to go by that, even if he gets a clean bill of health. It looks like this was a notable injury, so that show is February 24th. So potentially, obviously, if there's ligament or a tear, then you're talking about a significant longer time. But his next path is going to be interesting. Like, this is a guy with all the talent in the world, but there's only going to be so many places, and it seems like this recent go round with AEW is not going to continue, which is too bad, because I think they really had something special with him and Dante Martin that could have gone in many different directions.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like he's keeping busy, and I think there's still going to be demand from him from companies that are looking for exceptional talents like him. Again, as we kind of talked about yesterday, what's the audience's appetite going to be for another Lio Rush return? And absolutely, this was completely out of his hands. This one in particular, but nonetheless, it is I think another kind of like. Tom, you're gonna ask the audience to get excited about this guy again. And again, he's so talented in ring that I think all it really will require is some incredible performances for the audience to just like, let's say if he made his way into an Impact Wrestling, he is a part of like New Japan, but like, let's say if he got into Impact Wrestling, or like if he's a part of this like rebranded ROH that's coming out in April, I can see him generating a good amount of buzz, but of course, I do sense like a bit of a shorter leash from the audience in terms of their patience with him.
Mojo Rawley, the former Mojo Rawley, Dean Mutati, posted a update on Monday regarding why he has not wrestled. He has not had a match since mid-2020 when he was still in WWE. He was released in April of 2021, and here is that statement that he put out on Monday.
I've been asked a ton about when I'm coming back to wrestling or if I'm officially retired, so let me go ahead and answer that now. About 19 months ago, I got COVID extremely badly. I had to go to the hospital. I almost died, and my lungs were just in really bad shape. So much so that in the beginning, I couldn't have any extra pressure on my lungs or else it would suffocate me. I couldn't even speak for days on end because I couldn't get enough air in to talk. Maybe the scariest part of the whole thing was the fact that the doctors had no idea what to say because it was so new. But fast forward 19 months later, and I'm not quite 100%, but I'm getting pretty close. My training has been kicked up, and I'm feeling good enough to announce officially that I'm coming back to wrestling, baby. COVID thought it got me, but it must have forgot. I stay hyped.
FYI, COVID, don't mess with Mojo Rawley. That man, that was the most dire message that suddenly took a big turn where thankfully he is doing much better. But that is, very, very significant of what he was dealing with. And just looking here, his last match was June of 2020. So it had to be shortly after that that he contracted COVID while still in WWE. And then it wasn't until the following April that he was released, which, I mean, given what he was going through, this guy kept a very low profile in terms of like not sharing any of this and like his health struggles, but like 19 months, that's the effect. And this is a high level athlete that we're talking about here.
Yeah. And, let's try to take ourselves back to 19 months ago, to June of 2020. I mean, the world felt incredibly different, and I think our attitudes and the fear attached to COVID-19 was certainly at a different level. I mean, it's still there depending on where you are in the world, but back then, as he, Mojo kind of details in this video, we didn't know anything about it. His doctors didn't know enough about it, and there were no vaccines. And, clearly, unfortunately, this man happened to catch the virus back then and is still dealing with the repercussions right now. So it's a reminder how grateful I think we should be for medical advances only 19 months later. And a reminder of, like you can be somebody in the physical condition of a Mojo Rawley, former NFL player, and still, struggle like this way. So hopefully he makes a big return. He's one of those guys where I'm not exactly sure where he would land up in the professional wrestling world. Not exactly an indie darling, not somebody with that pedigree. But I mean, there are places for people who work really hard and for people who are creative, and he's definitely shown signs of that throughout his WWE run.
Yeah. So we wish him well, but that's really tough, and you just wonder how many of some of these, wrestlers that have maybe not disclosed what they have gone through, like Randy Orton recently discussing, like that was a 7-week absence he had to have. Roman Reigns recently talking about like he still can feel like some effects from having COVID, which was not all that long ago when he missed the day one show. But like here are high level athletes, and listen, it's like hearing these stories, it's like you have to assume like there are plenty others as well, people that maybe don't want to disclose health issues that they have undergone throughout this whole time. We'll go over to ratings notes from Friday, and SmackDown was down a little bit. They were down 13% in the demo. This was the night before the Royal Rumble, doing a 0.56, 729,000 viewers in the demo, 2,217,000 overall. So it was a really big week they had the week prior. So this kind of just returned to like your first couple of shows from January to those levels. So when we're down, it was like this kind of averaged out. They were down 13.5% in 18 to 34, down 12% in 35 to 49 going into the Rumble. And I can't believe this, but they were down slightly in the US and they were down slightly in Canada.
Wow, what's happening?
For 1 week, Canadians and Americans held hands and said, let's drop a minor percentage together in concert with one another. Unity among wrestling audiences in these two countries. I'm stunned. I didn't think we would see this.
So we are entering the Olympics, and will they affect Friday ratings as well. You think?
Yeah, because you got the opening ceremonies on Friday. So that's Olympics are going to be competition, and in the U.S. at least, I mean, we absolutely know Raw is going to be moving to sci-fi for 2 weeks. That's going to have an impact on them. And with NXT, you're talking a much smaller audience. This will at least be a test of like this new NXT of how much this audience are going to seek out the show on a different network. If there's going to be a big drop, or this is going to be a very loyal audience that just flips the channel to sci-fi to watch for NXT, which looks to include that Vengeance Day special as well. That will be on sci-fi instead of USA for whatever reason.
Yeah. So instead of choosing to save a special event like that for after the Olympics, they're choosing to do it within this time frame. So, does it show maybe just a commitment to wanting to stick with a WWE main roster type of live event schedule? Is it just simply getting the reps in and wanting to put these events, every few weeks just to at least let the talent have something to build to?
Yeah, I would imagine maybe there was some, like they were waiting for 100% confirmation for that February 15th, because it was like several weeks ago that I had heard about the potential of their next big show being done around Valentine's Day, and it could be on Sci-Fi. And then they made the announcement last week, and if you remember, they put up a graphic stating it was on the USA Network, and then quickly took that down and just put up the generic logo without network identification. And now it seems it will be on Sci-Fi, but I guess we watch tonight to see them, confirm that, because you want to really make it clear that we're on Sci-Fi the next 2 weeks, because I think NXT, it is going to be less of a priority for people to be moving networks. Do you think that they did they really only made one mention last night of Raw moving to Sci-Fi, but I mean, the Quiz Bowl, no one's going to miss the Quiz Bowl, so.
I'm kind of skewed because I already know about it. So I wasn't really looking for it, but I did find it a bit odd that they didn't drive it harder in the body of the show itself, like with in the midst of maybe somebody cutting a promo. Maybe Rada could have thrown in a Sci-Fi plug in there or something like that, in her speech. So I feel like they've done a bigger job of announcing it beforehand. So. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they don't care that much. Maybe they're just kind of throwing their hands up and saying, it's the Olympics, we're not going to put that much stock into the next week's numbers anyway.
Rampage did 601,000 viewers on Friday night. They finished 9th among cable originals, almost identical audience to the week prior. Their demo was 323,000, which would be their best demo figure for a Friday night Rampage, throwing out the Christmas night show since October. So that did well. But then their audiences, there was definitely a split here. Their 18 to 34 audience from the week prior dropped 48%. It was a big drop with males and females. It wasn't like one skewing more than the other. But then in 35 to 49, they were up 35%. So it was like their over 35 audience was really into their show. Their younger audience, a big decrease from the week before. And that was with our Championship Friday theme of the 2 title matches plus a Jon Moxley match on the show.
Interesting. Okay. Do you think Rampage might be affected by the Olympics being on a bit later it's kind of still in prime time, but kind of not?
I think you'll see some. This is, we're not talking about the Olympics from a advantageous time zone. So it's going to be the case of, games and events are going to be taking place at odd hours, but then airing in prime time in the US, which should have an impact across the board. I would say over the next 2 weeks, you'll probably see some effect, but yeah, I guess this Friday will kind of be a test to see how pronounced that will be for Rampage, for SmackDown, for all of wrestling. Are you going to be watching any of the Olympics?
I don't think so.
I don't think I will be
I've not
either.
been
I'm not a big Winter Olympics viewer anyway. I don't watch a whole lot of Olympics to begin with, but I skew more towards the Summer Games. I have interest in several of the events, but Winter Olympics, not really.
Where are they from? Beijing?
Beijing, yes.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not that interested.
Well, We will see if the wrestling audience is in line with you. New Japan is going to be going to Chicago for the Windy City Riot. This will be happening on April the 16th, and they're building this up as a very big event. It's going to be featuring Tomohiro Ishii, Yuji Nagata, Will Ospreay, Jay White, Jeff Cobb, Finn Juice, Tom Lawler, Jonah, Fred Rosser, and Brody King as the talent announced thus far. So I guess if this is kind of your top tier lineup, this sort of feels like a bigger than usual New Japan Strong event, but they are looking to make this big. I guess I'll just be curious if they add any other significant names to this show.
Absolutely, yeah. First time in a big market, I think a chance for New Japan to get a bit more buzz attached to them. You know, the roster I think is tremendous that they've announced. I'm more interested in this roster than the actual Japan roster. You know, and of course Will Ospreay being a part of this, Jay White being a part of this, Tomohiro Ishii coming over, and who knows, like who else? There are a lot of free agents out there right now, John, and who knows who may turn up in New Japan. But
an AEW talent that could end up on this show. Like you would think,
absolutely.
Like it's a Saturday night. It's
yeah.
Well,
Brody King has been announced. He's technically
Yep.
an AEW talent, but also somebody with prior obligations to New Japan as well. But sure, I wouldn't discount maybe. What if Brody King brought a stablemate here into New Japan?
Yeah.
Julia Hart showed up in New Japan.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So many different avenues that you are opening up for people to expect for the Windy City Riot.
I mean, really a city that's been spoiled. You know, Chicago. We haven't had.
It's a great
anything.
market. Like they're gonna run this. I mean, AEW's there on Wednesday night, but it is, you know, they have a lot of incentive to run Chicago, but it is certainly a lot of demand on one market on such a consistent basis that we see. Well, Los Angeles is getting the return of Sean Waltman. So they announced the tag match with Sean Waltman and Joey Janela against Matt Cardona and Brian Myers will happen on February 25th, later this month. That card also has Homicide against Dr. Wagner, Blake Christian against Nick Wayne, and Atticus Cogar versus Kevin Blackwood. So, putting the tag match later this month in LA. And I think that's, intriguing match to see, Sean Waltman in 2022. He's been working towards a comeback and talking about it, and it's been several years since we have seen him wrestle, and this seemed like the obvious match coming out of the pay-per-view last weekend.
Yeah. I was not a fan of the match, and I would say I felt the majority was pretty negative on the Janela versus Cardona match, but I think there were also a lot of people that really enjoyed it. Some people claiming that was the only, or their favorite part, I should say, of the GCW Hammerstein event. So there are fans. I'm curious to see how if they do at all address or at least respond to some of the criticisms of overbooking in their previous match. Do they shy away from it? Or do they lean into it and overbook the shit out of this one too? I don't know. But to me, the intrigue is to see Sean Waltman again. I think over the years, he's really managed to improve, I think, his public image. You know, he has his own podcast, but every time he's done interviews, feels like an incredibly refreshing voice in the wrestling space, somebody who's not afraid to speak his mind. And I think over the years, we have coined, of course, the term X-Pac heat, but over the years, I think we've all started to grow a greater appreciation for how great of a wrestler he actually was. Certainly every time we do a Rewind Away and Sean Waltman appears, he is consistently, to me, somebody who is a standout amongst eras of guys where wrestling was just not very good. So I think he's managed to build, I think, a great level of like positivity around him and around this. So I'm curious to see what he looks like.
And then we've got Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 8 has been announced for WrestleMania week. It will be on the Thursday of that week as part of the collective happening at 3 p.m. local time in Texas. So continuing Bloodsport, which everyone knew was going to be part of WrestleMania week. And I'm just more interested because you had, a lot of these different cuts. Like Bloodsport is a really interesting avenue to see if you get any more unconventional players in in Bloodsport, for instance, and who pops up. It would seem like this is the perfect kind of show that you have. It's in some ways it's like a one-off show, and you're just looking to put interesting styles together, and people that conversely are looking at a show like this to maybe reinvent themselves on top of it. Like, these are always entertaining shows, so this will certainly be one of the shows Mania week that I will make some time to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of curious with all the buzz surrounding Terminus and all the rules that they were set, how much of Terminus, the style in Terminus would cross over from Bloodsport. And for what I saw, the end result wasn't really all that much, because I felt like Terminus ultimately ended up being more of, professional wrestling, kind of straight up based. Whereas to me, Bloodsport maybe adheres a bit more strictly to the rules that you might expect of a shoot style. So I'm certainly very excited for it, and digging around some of the quote tweets here, I think you already have some people who are putting their hat in perhaps with being attached to this. You have Hideki Suzuki, Hachiman recently released, saying beautiful violent art. He was somebody who appeared on a previous Bloodsport card. Maybe he'll make a return, and then even Charlie Haas here saying So
look at this.
We shall see.
Investigative work here from Wai on the quote tweet front. Yeah, there's plenty out there. Like a Karrion Kross, you could certainly see easily could navigate himself towards this. Marina Shafir, Nia Jax. I mean, the list is endless.
Nia Jax in Bloodsport.
That'd be awesome.
See,
this should be her comeback.
Well, hey, she has drawn blood.
Did you hear her interview with Renee? I haven't heard it. I just read some of the quotes.
Yeah. This interview, maybe we should talk a bit about it. I didn't hear the interview itself, but yeah, I did read the quotes. We have an article on the site, of course, from the wonderful Andrew Thompson, who will actually be joining me here in the post-news update space tomorrow. So we look forward to that. But yeah, what were your thoughts on Nia Jax and some of her comments?
Yeah, well, again, I've not heard it, but looking at the quotes here, I guess the two main takeaways: she was offered a spot in the Royal Rumble and turned it down, noting, "I'm still on my 90 days. I'm getting paid." And the way she framed it here, it was like the call was pretty much, "Can we put you down on the list that will eventually have to be finalized?" So it's not even like a guarantee you're in the Rumble. It's just like you're on the list to be considered for the Rumble, which is like, it's a little bit of like, come on, you let me go and then you call me just to be considered for the opportunity of being a cameo return. So I could understand your aversion to such an offer, but also confirming.
Can you imagine how tone deaf it is? Like, you let
completely.
I mean, I guess in their minds they think of themselves so highly that, like, hey, like, we let you go, even though we've kind of, it's come at great cost to you, perhaps, in a PR sense, and also financially for a lot of these people with their mortgages and whatnot. And again, it
comes like just days after, like, the story was out in the Observer and confirmed by Matt Hardy that they called Jeff Hardy to, like, put him in the Hall of Fame. It's like, you guys just fired me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we've gone our separate ways. Like, let's just have a clean break here.
Right. Anyway, so
the other story in this as well, though, that we should mention, confirming that she did not get vaccinated, and that obviously did play a role in this, where she had to sit down with Vince McMahon and stated, that she would not be able to fulfill some of her contractual duties, which she would not be if you are not vaccinated. That is going to limit a global company from utilizing you.
Yeah. So, there are different circumstances for every single person's release, and this seemed to play a big part in hers. So, it is what it is. If it's her choice, and I think these are the circumstances. You can't really work for a company. You can't really enter a lot of these buildings, and you can't really travel in a sport that requires a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. And hey, you're free to make whatever choice you so desire. So there you go. Tonight, NXT 2.0 will be taking place on USA. Tonight they're on USA before they move to Sci-Fi. And we have the announcements of Imperium, all three of them, Marcel Bartel, Fabian Eichner, and of course Gunther, taking on the Creeds and Roderick Strong. Raquel Gonzalez versus Cora Jade, and Braun Breaker and Tommaso Ciampa taking on Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza. And they look to be teasing something involving Braun Breaker and Dolph Ziggler. They did a promo with Ziggler after Raw, indicating he might pop up at NXT, but, hinting at that. So Breaker's got the Santos Escobar match, which kind of feels like the match you would go with for this Vengeance Day special. And then maybe something with Ziggler. Like maybe they look at that as something big enough to do for their Stand and Deliver show in April.
Ciampa and Ziggler.
No, Braun Breaker and Ziggler.
Oh, Breaker and Ziggler.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I went on a whole big rant about Dolph Ziggler yesterday about how it'd be impossible to get me interested in this guy. Him in the context of NXT is actually quite interesting, especially NXT 2.0, which maybe poses a bit of a different. Like if it was Ziggler in black and gold NXT against, like a Roderick Strong or like a Kyle O'Reilly, I'd be really interested actually, because I think we'd be seeing a very different Dolph Ziggler without necessarily wrestling the same 3-minute pattern match that we always see him in on a SmackDown or a Raw. Against a Braun Breaker, I'm not exactly sure, but I think there'd be a lot more interest because number one, it's at least a fresh pairing for a Dolph Ziggler. It's a different environment for Dolph Ziggler where his star power will feel a bit bigger, and
another veteran for Breaker to work with. Like there's a benefit for Braun Breaker beyond just selling tickets or interest. Like Breaker, like that should be a beneficial experience from him.
And somebody who I'm assuming they can sacrifice to a Braun Breaker.
Yes,
from the main roster.
Yeah, the gatekeeper, Dolph Ziggler. We'll find out.
Yeah.
Your favorite fighter's fighter. All right, well, that's NXT. So tonight you can catch Up Next with Braden Harrington. Do we know, is Davey Portman on the show tonight?
I believe he is, yeah. Davey was he was, one of the guys in charge of the Up Next Rumble, so he's good to go. He's got a big setup. It'll be at, 3 a.m. his time or something like that?
Yes. So tack on 5 hours. So that makes NXT a bit more of a chore. When it's,
it'll make the podcast better, I would say. I'm assuming. Hey, we have a few super chats here, John, that we want to get to. Let's go to first. Thank you, everybody, for being here. By the way, again, we're live every weekday, 1 o'clock Eastern time, either on youtube.com/postwrestling, where I would suggest it would be the optimal experience because you get to join the chat room here, or we're also live on Twitter. I should get
nice
my
save. Yeah.
Twitter and also Facebook. But if you are on YouTube, this is the only way where you can send a super chat to get us to answer a question at the end of the show. First, we got to Alex Lopez, who sends a $4.99 super chat. Thank you for the support, Alex. Alex says, are there any Mania plans for Sasha now that she's likely been bumped from a Charlotte match? Can she debray herself into that match, maybe? Thanks, guys.
I would say, they're based off, I think Sasha, it seems like she, healed quicker than maybe they were expecting. So this return to the Rumble, I don't pin her performance, or I shouldn't say her performance, but her handling in the Rumble as indicative of where you slot her in. It felt like this was a very last minute thing, and we got her in, and she was in there for a minimal amount of time, which maybe they were just doing out of their own concern so that it's not too much after, she hadn't wrestled for 4 weeks. I would imagine Sasha's going to have a program for WrestleMania, and if the idea of going for the tag titles, maybe that's a scenario. It's not going to be maybe as high profile as what she had last year, but something of substance at least.
Well, I mean, I had the thought of how they're going to pull off this Charlotte versus Ronda match, especially if Ronda continues to be the type of character that we saw yesterday. She's not going to gain much favor from the crowd as a babyface, and certainly Charlotte's not going to be that one either. So I'm wondering how can they possibly save that? And to me, a solution would be to throw Sasha Banks into the match. At this point, I don't think they would take Charlotte away because she's the champion first of all. Certainly Ronda has to be there, but there's no crowd favorite. There's nobody that the crowd is going to want to cheer for in that match unless they pull off some sort of miracle in the storytelling between Charlotte and Ronda themselves. But I think a solution would simply be to add Sasha in there to just at least give the audience somebody that they want to actually see win, be a part of that match.
Yeah, and I think given that it is 2 months out, whatever plans are, like as we can see, like they, things could, scenarios could dictate like they change something up. If Charlotte and Ronda is not progressing, like maybe Sasha does become something that you could utilize there.
All right, up next we go to, wow, speaking of the Up Next Rumble, somebody who did very well, the all mysterious Extinctor. John, are you familiar with the
I am now, yes.
Extinctor? Yeah. Extinctor, quite the performance, quite the shocking performance, and maybe even quite the shocking reveal, too, for people who managed to catch the Up Next Rumble. Extinctor sends a $5 super chat. Thank you very much. He says, Buenos dias. Thoughts on MLW Azteca? Have you had a chance to catch any of it? I have not, John.
Only bits and pieces of it. Yeah, I haven't watched a whole lot of MLW Azteca. Although, like some of the luchadors that have been on that show, like it's been an impressive lineup. Like if you want to see more of like Aris or Aramis, like they taped a bunch when they were down in Mexico, and their production is like very good. Like they've been airing vignettes, kind of hinting towards a Killer Cross showing up with like the hourglass and the TikTok. So, it's it's a show that I think it's one that people are. It's probably not your number one show you're watching every week, but if you can fit it into your schedule, like it's a fun hour of TV.
Yeah, and Extinctor, if you want to maybe know a bit more about it, I mean, we do have reports from John Cena up at postwrestling.com every single week talking about MLW Azteca. So if you are a fan, I suggest you check out some of John Cena's work, Extinctor. Thank you very much for that. All right, we go up next to Akash, who sends a $5 super chat. Thank you, Akash. He says, what are the chances of AEW stealing the Rumble concept for one of their shows? With all of the stars they have, they can put together a classic match.
Not the Rumble verbatim. Like they've got their Casino Battle Royale. That's their Battle Royal.
I'm assuming that that's probably as close as we'll get, like War Games is one thing because like the WWE didn't originate it, and Cody Rhodes, the son of the man who created the concept, is actually one of the EVPs of the company. The Rumble, it's I think it's so much more tied to the WWE, and because WWE typically does it really well, I don't see them doing a whole, hey, for one show we're gonna have a 30-man thing, 2 minutes or 90 seconds, another man enters. I think the closest you will get to it is what we currently see with the Casino Battle Royal.
Yeah,
and
I'm kind of tired of like everyone copies the Rumble in some form or fashion. That it just feels like kind of overdone.
And I would say to pretty poor effect. I mean, if our bar is set at what the New Japan Ramble.
A lot of them have been bad. I would say the major exception over the last few years was like Aztec Warfare in Lucha Underground. That some of those matches were really phenomenal. I especially remember the one where they introduced Matanza, and it was great. It was really fantastic.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think the Casino Battle Royals have really been hit and miss, and for the most part, I don't think there's that much importance put on them because they're just simply like kickoff types of things.
I think the best battle royal they did, and this technically predated AEW, was that over budget battle royal that they did at All In. I thought that was like a really well laid out battle royal that they did.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Akash. We go up next to Carl Crosley, who sends a 10-pound super chat. 10 pounds. Hi, Wei. You mentioned that Chinese New Year for you related to food. I'm interested to know if this is the same for you in Canada as it was for me in the UK. Spring rolls, prawn toast, egg fried rice, and sweet and sour. I think he's asking what the type of food that we might.
I think so. I think that's the question.
Okay. Yeah, I can't really say it's spring rolls, prawn toast, egg fried rice, and sweet and sour. So there are two types, I would say, two types of like Chinese food, and it's like I would say more westernized Chinese food, and that is where I would categorize certain things like spring rolls. Which, like, like when we go to dim sum, like me and my family, we certainly eat those things too. But it's also other things that I would never see at, like, like a Western Chinese restaurant menu. A lot of seafood, like abalone, shrimp, and, we had some lobster yesterday. Like, Chinese lobster is really good. It's like they season it incredibly well, and they, like, fry it in totally different ways. Or they cook it. I don't know if it's fried or whatever. So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of stuff that I think as a kid, like growing up here, like and just only wanting to eat McDonald's, I was terrified by because it didn't look very good. But now as an adult, I have certainly an appreciation for it, at a different level because I don't have it as often, and also because I recognize how expensive it is. So, when you're a bit older and you know how much money's going into it, you tend to appreciate it a bit more. So I actually put a photo up in my Instagram stories yesterday. So if you're interested, Carl, check that out within the next few hours.
He's definitely interested for this kind of a contribution for such a question.
Thank you so much for the support, Carl. And then finally, for our super chats, a lot of super chats today. Thank you, everybody, for your support. We go to our man, Neil Flanagan, who sends a £5 super chat, who says, has the mystery of the real winner of the Rumble pool been solved? And I would say the answer is kind of half, yeah, because for people who didn't who didn't listen to Rwanda Raw all the way yet last night, we did reveal the result of our Royal Rumble pool, and there was a bit of controversy at the very end because the winner ended up being Brandon from New Jersey. However, looking at it a little bit deeper, and because I suppose I know the real Brandon from New Jersey's email, the emails didn't match. So I sent a message last night to Brandon, asked him, hey, is this your email? And he said no. So we have an imposter, Brandon from New Jersey, that ended up winning the Rumble pool. So we know that
is that what was on the line? Was his name on the line? That we should have had that in writing going in.
Well, I mean, the man was not aware. The other person was not aware to that stipulation. But anyway, so I've not contacted the actual winner yet, but we do know that he is not the real Brandon from New Jersey. Unless Brandon's making it all up. I mean, I don't discount that either, unless he's like working us.
Is this chess that is being played? Are we the pawns?
Could be.
Well, thank you, Neil. We will keep you posted. The Royal Rumble pool was a lot of fun.
It was, yeah. And again, thank you, Chris Angler. Listen to last night's show for all the results, and hope you guys join us for our other contests.
Yes. Last thing here, it is the start of the month, so the last time we will hit you over the head that it is a great time to join the Post Wrestling Cafe to get all of our bonus shows that come out throughout the month, access to all of our archives, including 102 editions of Rewind Away, with the big number 102 dropping last week, which was a thoroughly enjoyable listen, as I took my daughter out for a walk and listened to the entire thing and laughed many times out loud. You guys outdid yourselves. I think you topped Slam Jam.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's hard to believe it's actually been a week since we recorded that one. But yeah, it was a show I'm really happy with. And I hope you guys, if you are new members of the Post Wrestling Cafe, jump in there and take a listen to Rewind Away 102 as we talk about Alex Wright, DDP. Are you still listening to the song? Is it still in the playlist?
No, it is not. None of this is. But it was fun to listen to in some short bites.
All right, right on. So very cool.
Okay, you can access all of that. PostWrestlingCafe.com is where you can go. And tomorrow, news update live at 1 Eastern with Wai Ting and the great Andrew Thompson. So check in on that. And that is it for us. Thank you for tuning in and listening, watching the Post Daily News Show.